fireside chat segment on the inspiring stories of our women leaders. So our first session is titled Breaking Barriers, Paving Way for Future Peers, which will be an informal conversation with the veteran professionals of the real estate on their experience of breaking the long-held traditions and customs to chart their own professional and personal journey. So let me welcome our distinguished speakers for this session. I welcome Dr. Ananta Singh Raghuvanshi, an exceptional leader with an indelible contribution of 30 years to the real estate industry, having led and launched over 100 successful products. She is a PhD in marketing management and has been Executive Director DLF, Chief Executive MGF, and Country Head and Senior Director DEMAC, and is currently Senior Executive Director at Experian Developers. Ms. Raghuvanshi, a very warm welcome to you. Joining us from Sri Lanka is Ms. Nela D'Souza, a practicing architect from Sri Lanka. She has the distinction of being the only living architect in Sri Lanka to be an honorary fellow of the American Institute of Architects and Royal Institute of British Architects. Her international affiliations include Fellow of Royal Institute of Australian Architects, International Associate of the Royal Architectural Institute of Canada, and life member of Indian Institute of Interior Designers. Ms. Nela D'Souza, a very warm welcome to you on this session. And our final eminent speaker, I introduce Ms. Sheila Sri Prakash, an internationally acclaimed architect, urban designer, and sustainability expert who founded Shilpa Architects, Planners, Designers in 1979. She is closely associated with the Chennai Smart City as an independent director and an urban expert. And in 2017, she was awarded the Benemerenity Medallion by the University of Architecture and Urbanism, Bucharest, Romania, and Ministry of National Education and Scientific Research as a global acknowledgement for her championing the cause of sustainability on international forums. So this is our eminent panel of speakers with whom we will have an informal chat about their own journeys. At the time that they entered this field as entrepreneurs, the times were completely different. So Nela, starting with you, you had once mentioned that you have lived your life backwards. So please tell our audience, how did that happen?
Yes, Sapna, I do consider that I have lived my life backwards. My painting and sculpture was my prelude to architecture. Architecture was my first love since I designed my dream house for dogs at the age of 10, perhaps watching my father. My father is Dr. Justin Samasekara, a pioneer in the field, a product of JJ College, Bombay, a contemporary of C.H.S. Jadwala, who is one of the founders of the Sri Lanka Institute of Architects, who has brought architecture education to Ceylon via the RIBA. He's a past president, honorary fellow, and a gold medalist of the Sri Lanka Institute of Architects. However, faith being what it was, I was married off at 18 to a relative who believed that artists were lunatics and architects were on the knife edge of lunacy. After having my two sons, Sivaji and Shivanta, I bid goodbye to my stifling marriage after 6 years and decided to go on to my first love, which was architecture. While working in my father's firm, Justin Samasekara Associates, for many years, handling almost 10 to 15 projects at any given time. I won many awards for the firm. However, while working, I embarked on my architecture education at CSA at a mature age of 37, which was not an easy journey, being under my father's ever bright shadow. My success was always never attributed as my own. I guess that's one of the reasons I use my married name I keep on using my married name. Okay, and I started my own practice in 1993 under the name and style of Nela D'Souza Design Corporation Private Limited. While yet in school, coaxed by my friend and teacher, C. Anjalendra, who became a partner of Design Corp, I won a belt of international and national awards for Design Corp. So as you can see, Sapna, I have lived my life backwards, quite unconventionally. Hope my past would inspire other women architects to achieve a greater heights in spite of the setbacks I've faced, which I really call a rich experience that I have encountered.
That's right. You know, at the age of 40, when, you know, women, you know, start thinking of, okay, in another 10 years, we will probably retire and, you know, we will give up our career. That was the time when you actually started your career.
That's
and,
right.
You know, and then coming out of the, as you rightly said, that, you know, obviously being a woman, most of the successes and, you know, achievements were being attributed to the father or the, you know, the head of the organization. And, you know, how you came out of the shadow of your father and started your own organization, you know, while you were still studying, and, you know, made a career. And now, you know, as you are called as the lady of many firsts in Sri Lanka, we'll come that you know, to you on that. But Miss Sheila Sri Prakash, you also started your, you know, your firm in 1979, when it was not known for, you know, most women architects to start on their own, or they have their own firm. So how was your journey at that point of time when you decided to start on your?
Hi, Nela. Lovely to
Hi,
see you.
hi. Lovely seeing you.
Yeah. Hi,
Hi, Sonali.
Hi, Sonali. Yeah, I sent a chat message to Sonali also. So I actually, when I started, I was very young. And you know, when you're very young, you don't have any fears. You just jump into things. So I guess that's how I jumped into architecture. You know, as a young girl, my father made me believe that I could achieve whatever I wanted. I was the only child. And, you know, I learned a lot of arts. I learned dance, music, sculpture, almost all the arts. I think being a single child, they taught me everything. And I also responded by learning and doing well. So I thought that architecture is, you know, a very, very good profession for me. So I wanted to do it. But there, when I went for my interview, having come first in, you know, stayed first in my PU exam, professor asked me if I was not depriving a male of a career. So that was a rude shock. So I never realized that these kinds of biases existed, since I didn't even contend with boys at home. So anyway, that made me only more determined that I should do architecture. I got a seat and I completed my architecture. And when I completed my architecture, I got married very early when I was 18, and I was still in college. And I don't regret it. I mean, given a chance, I would do it all over again, because I recently lost my husband. And, you know, that's made me feel really, I don't know, I've never got over it. So I feel what I've had with him is not really enough. So he was a person who kind of enthused me into, one, continuing and completing my course, two, starting off on my own, because I was working for an engineer, really, very close to home. Because, you know, it was close, I could come back, I could, you know, have lunch at home and go back and come back. And commuting was easy. But, you know, it didn't give me any satisfaction because, you know, I was the only architect there, but nothing beyond this, the shape of the sunshade was, you know, construed as architecture. So it really, you know, it kind of disillusioned me a lot. And here I was, you know, thinking that built, designed environments are there to empower people, is there to, you know, make people perform better, all these laudable ideas. So my husband Sri Prakash said, you don't have to go and work there. Why don't you start on your own? That's how I started on my own. Today, given a chance, you know, with being skeptical about what projects you will get, because I didn't have any projects to show. But at the same time, I must say that the scale of the projects were, you know, very tiny. I used to do houses. I used to do, say, clinics. I used to do a factory not more than 3,000 square feet. So those were the scales of projects. And I diligently worked very hard at it. I tried to innovate, and I believe that every project was special. So you have to start from the scratch, experiment, you know, analyze and see what is the best fit for that particular design. And then, so all my projects, fortunately for me, were well received by my clients. And, you know, projects started coming. But still, I found that, you know, nice creamier projects were not coming to me. And creamier in the sense, you know, I had a client who remarked once, he went to Singapore with the architect to, you know, look at various designs before finalizing his design. And he said, I can't do that with Sheila, you know, in spite of, you know, being a family friend. So, you know, those were the kinds of mindsets that were there at that time. So, and there was another person who said he's not giving me his house. His wife told me this because he can't fire a woman. I mean, so, you know, there were all kinds of mental perceptions. And that made me believe that, well, if those projects don't come to me, let me see how I can make my little projects very special. So I started working on, you know, those days green wasn't there, but I used to try and see how I could cool the house effectively. Working on passive architecture, I worked with the rat trap board. I reconfigured the Madras terrace roof. This was a beautiful roof, just bricks. So I did away with concrete in my construction completely. This was also a challenge because I could never get the contractors to work for me for such projects because they felt that A, the costs come down, so their margins are lower, and two, that, you know, you felt that there was not enough, you know, money in the whole project.
Quite an eventful, I believe, journey, you know, starting, you know, being, as you rightly said, you know, sometimes it is the family member, you know, who encourages you. And in your case, that was one fortunate thing that your husband encouraged you to go ahead, not buy work for someone else. You start with your, and then the challenges that you spoke about the mindset, and then proving yourself through whatever work you get. Quite challenging, I believe, you know, the journey which you took at that point of time and has now opened, you know, ways for others now to, you know, it's made life easier for many others now. Ananta, you also joined real estate 30 years back, which at that point of time considered a male bastion, you know. So how did that happen? How, you know, why did you choose real estate as a career, which was not considered a woman career at that point of time?
Good evening, Sapna. Hi, Nela. Hello, Sheila, and all our viewers. Yes, it's very interesting. Maybe that is why I joined it, because anything which is challenging, anything which is different, anything which is unique, that always attracts you, right? So why real estate? I was clear about one part, which was that I wanted to do sales and marketing. I was straight out of Miranda House. After that, I had done a diploma from YWCA in marketing management. I'd got my gold medal in that. I was very kicked with life, and I was all of 21. So I was very sure that I wanted to do sales and marketing. And if I had to do sales and marketing, then let's sell the most expensive thing, superlatives. At that age, it's all about superlatives. And then let's work in the most beautiful building in the country. And this beautiful glass building, almost the type that you have in Manhattan and Singapore now. But at that time, there was just one in NCR. And I said, I should be working in the prettiest building, and I should be selling the most expensive thing, and I should be the best one in my team. So with all those things, with all those ideas that you have at 21, I walked into real estate, and once you are there, then of course, it takes a little bit of thinking, because at that age, it takes a while to settle in and into, that rhythm, because college life is quite different from professional life. And I think Neela and I were here competing to get married very quickly. So when I started working at 21, I was already married. There was a hope also, and all the relationships go with marriage. Yeah, so the job was there, the dream job was there, and the dream love marriage was there. And there I was trying to suddenly, from being a college girl, be this woman, who could do well at work and who could balance her home and everything. So too many challenges at one go. So
but in your professional life,
that's why I'm stuck in that time warp.
But did you have to, face any challenges like Sheila mentioned about the mindsets,
Yes.
people would not hire a woman architect, or Nela mentioned about, how, she started with her because, being a daughter of a well-known architect, you are not given that kind of, credit for your work. So you had also some similar challenges when you entered, with big dreams in your eyes. Yeah.
Yes, Sapna, lots of them, because one, I come from a family where there's nobody in real estate except for me. It's a family of doctors, army officers, bureaucrats, all of those things, lawyers, judges. I mean, both sides, if you were to see, there is nobody in real estate. And also, it wasn't something which was considered a very respectable thing to do, in 1991 June, that, you're walking into a builder, developer, and you're so young, and what are you going to do? I mean, so even your family doesn't have that type of confidence in you, And my mom used to tell me, you're so intelligent, you get such good marks, why don't you just become a doctor? Even then, she hadn't given up. So finally, I said, you don't worry, I'll have a doctor in front of my name eventually. I'll do a PhD, but I don't want to be surrounded by sick people all the time. That's not how I see my life, And so, there was that part there. But in your workplace, like I told you, when I first started working, my father-in-law was still in service, and he was given a government accommodation in Lutyens, Delhi. We were living in 38 Canning Lane at that time, and my office was in Connaught Place. So on his way to work, he would drop me at my office sometime. So I came in a staff car. I lived at Lutyens, Delhi. So, people would keep a distance from me because they thought I was just coming to office to time pass. I wasn't really serious. And then the age factor, and then the gender factor. So there wasn't one thing which was there. But it's not only about how people are looking at you at that age. It is also about how you are looking at them at that age, because when you come out straight from college, and there was a big cultural change happening at that time. I wasn't the only one. There was a whole bunch of us kids from, some from Stephens and Sardar Patel, and I was from Miranda, and then there was somebody from Loreto and someone from JNC. So the whole look and feel of the industry was changing suddenly. So there was this gap, which was not just an experience or age gap. It was a complete refresh button, which was, the real estate industry was undergoing that metamorphosis in that sense, So it's also the way that, we looked at them, and coming from an army background where, nobody is socially awkward. Women are treated with a lot of respect, and children are always treated as precious. So for me also to understand and adjust in that civilian environment, and that too in real estate, was very different. But what I did realize was that they did realize I was so hardworking, I was so willing to learn, and it was just my nature. I was at that age also that dignified person. I did not like this tutu language. I was into art. I would not hop onto a colleague's bike because the walk to the bus stop was far away. It was just my mindset, and they realized it had nothing to do with them. It was more about me. They adjusted with me, all the men around me. And I kind of, formed some kind of an understanding with them, I think, because ultimately then it's all about your work, and
Right.
it's good to be transparent. It's good to be blunt. It's good to be open. It saves all the drama in life, and, you just move on. So I think eventually these are such strong relationships. I have those relationships for the last 30 years, all of them, each one of them.
So it's
Yeah,
adjustments from
very
both the
precious.
sides. While the industry kind of accepted you, okay, and you also kind of adjusted with the new scenario that was unfolding in front of you. So like I think the takeaway from all the speakers right now is that what Leila said, that it was at the point of time when she started, she realized what her first love was. She did not back out that no, now I cannot do it. At any age you can fulfill your dreams. So that is what Miss Neela Deshoiser did. And from what a takeaway that I get from Miss Sheila Sri Prakash is that if your family members have faith in you, in your ability, in your capability, and a little bit of encouragement can go a long way. And we see, Miss Sheila Sri Prakash starting from the time when clients did not have faith in them, and now she's doing international projects, and where the entire her firm is now, her daughter has joined her firm. And from Ms. Ananta, the real estate, now we know your secret why you did PhD. So to get the doctor alphabet in front of your name for your mom. But in terms of accepting that, dreaming big, you dreamt big to be in those shiny glass towers, and you made it happen in spite of whatever culture shock that you got at that point of time. So thanks, to all our women leaders who opened up new doors for us. Miss Leila, what you are, as I mentioned, you are a architect of many firsts. In terms of emerging women design entrepreneurs, what do you see how they are doing? What is your advice for them? What more can be done for them?
Well, you see, I did this program on women in architecture, which was in a way, it was actually the American Institute of Architects invited me to share the program. And it's a program where you see, basically, women came into the forefront of design, in this 20th century, late 20th century. It is, the late 20th century. And it is, until then, men were dominating the profession. I'm sure all of Sheila will agree with me. Today, in classrooms, we have women and men 50-50, you see. And of course, how many of them qualify as practicing architects? This figure drops down to just 15%, which is very sad. What has happened to the balance 35? They have fallen by the wayside. So, I mean, basically, AIA invited me to chair this series of Women in Architecture and Design, which was presented on the AIA platform last November, reaching every corner of the earth. 15 women architects and designers from US, Mexico, UK, Denmark, Italy, South Africa, Pakistan, India, Sri Lanka, Singapore, China, and Australia discuss their journey through their outstanding work and the hardships they faced and the obstacles they overcame in achieving greatness. Needless to say, the audience was held spellbound listening to these stories as they narrated. I have been exposing this to future generations of young architects, and they've been, to just empower them to achieve the pinnacle and not succumb to their pitfalls. I had some most beautiful letters of appreciation, which were written following this series. So basically, it's similar to what you're trying to do, Sapna. I mean, all these women architects, very famous architects. You see, I have to say that the women in architecture and design was the brainchild of Brinda Somaya. But I took it a different level. However,
what we all are trying to do is, through your inspiring stories, inspire others.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Sheila Shri Prakash, what Nela rightly mentioned, that we have majority of women in design school, are female students in architecture or interior design, but not all of them. Or as Nela said, it's only 15% who go on to have their own firms and become, the design heads of their own firms. So,
Right.
in your, one line, what more we can do to inspire these women designers to, be their own leaders?
Yeah, this series was actually practically an eye-opener, because all the famous architects, I mean, India was represented by Brinda Somaya herself.
Sheila, you have to add something to what Nela just said.
Yeah. See, I think that to be an architect, what you need is knowledge about the built environment, the technology, materials, etc. And the sensitivity to situations, various situations. And by marrying these two, knowledge and sensitivity, I think you can combine and create designs which are truly successful for humanity and the planet. So I feel that women have this in abundance. The sensitivity is something which comes natural to them. The fact that they want to nurture, the fact that they are very passionate about whatever they do, and the fact that they can, even multitask. So I think these are our strengths. So I think all the girls, the young girls, in my firm, I have more women architects than men architects. We travel, we stay up late, we work. We are passionate in what we do. Of course, we bend backwards to see that our families are, okay. And in the firm also, if a mother has to go to her school, child's school, that is a priority. We make amends for it. We don't try to negate these kinds of issues. So I think one is that women should pursue architecture, and they're very, very, very suited to the profession. And two is, it's not necessary to do work on your own, start on your own, because today the scenario is very different. Earlier, design was very simple. Today, it's very complex because it involves collaborations, consultants, teams, etc. So I think whatever they choose to, whether it is design, whether it is site work, whether it is project coordination, project monitoring, whatever aspect of architecture, they can be, they can contribute even as a team if they are not able to start on their own. So the first step, baby step, is to continue being an architect.
That's right. So again, it has to come from both sides. You women, need to be passionate about what they want in life, their career. So that passion and aspiration has to come from the women to pursue career, and then the organizations need to be flexible to consider the needs of the family of women as well. Anantaji, you have been mentoring a lot of women leaders. So my last question to you is, what I asked our other speakers is what more can be done so that what more women leaders we can have in our businesses, in our industries.
Yes, yes. Sapna, I have this insatiable desire to inspire women to perspire. So wherever I come across, whether these are young girls who land up for an interview or these are middle level executives I'm surrounded with, or anybody, I keep chewing their brains and I keep asking them, is this the best that you're capable of, or can you do better? Can you move higher? Can you do more than where you are? So that is something which I just cannot get over, and therefore I'm associated with so many things which help me to fulfill that need of mine. Because somewhere I just feel, 50% of the world population, and it's across. Today morning I was addressing about 100 plus executives of IKEA in something which they call Friday Fika. Fika means, a snack, coffee and cake. And they do this beautiful thing in Sweden, Norway, and Scandinavian countries. And when I was talking to them also, I realized that, there were so many men listening to me and so few women even there. So therefore I've got associated with a whole lot of these things where I've put my head in and I'm doing my best. One of them is very interesting, and I'm very proud of this, is that the NAREDCO has started a women's wing, NAREDCO Mahi. And, I'm the first president-elect of NAREDCO Mahi under the aegis of Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India. And the sole purpose of this is to actually handhold and uplift women. It's like picking up from what Nella was just saying, you kind of fall in love when it's about a man or it's about a relationship. But when you are in love with your work, then you rise in love. That love for your work kind of just keeps uplifting you. And no matter what type of problems come your way, Sheila ji just opened her heart out to all of us and spoke about the loss of her spouse. Nella ji just spoke about, whatever it is, and on whatever note a relationship and a parting happens, it does cause some emotional upheaval definitely happens. It's not easy, but your work is so therapeutic. And I think every woman needs to have something else to do, like this. So this NAREDCO Mahi is very good. Then I'm also associated with something called She Connects, where there are about 3,000 entrepreneurs. They are not necessarily concerned with real estate alone. They're doing many, many things. It's almost like an Atmanirbhar story for them. And I help them out as much as I can. Then you're aware, RICS and the girls there, we help them out. So yeah, so wherever one can do, whatever one can do, I try my best.
It's really inspiring and motivating for us also to see, all of you doing so much, encouraging others. There was a time when you yourself struggled to make your own place, and now you are also trying to persuade others, and make, open doors further for them. And in fact, our next session is with the young, women professionals of in real estate and building and construction industry. So we will be hearing for them, but you have opened the doors for them and probably, the glass ceiling for them. So thank you so much, Ms. Nela de Souza. We'll be taking this conversation forward, through our editorial later on. We have the challenge right now. And Ms. Sheila Sri Prakash, we'll be in touch with you to further know your story.
Right.
And Anantaji, we have to go ahead with this entire session editorially onwards. But as of now, thank you all for that very inspiring and motivating conversation that
Happy
highlighted.
And stay safe, everyone.
Yeah, you highlighted the fun,
Thank
the
you very
struggle,
much,
and the
Sapna.
accomplishment of making history. So thank you so much on that. So thank you so much, Ms. Sheila Sri Prakash, Ms. Nela joining us from Sri Lanka, and Anantaji joining us from Delhi. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
So
Thank
much
you
for
very much.
giving me this
Thank you,
opportunity to
Sapna.
meet